Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Point Podcast. Hope you guys are all doing well. Happy New Year to everybody. It's been a wild week. I know I was only on once last week on the podcast for the World Juniors. I was in Edmonton, as you can see. I'm back in my familiar confines here. So to kind of give you a rundown of last week, I'm at the World Junior Tournament, loving it. Catching every game in Edmonton, which is never been there before. It's not my favorite city, but we won't go into that today. But fantastic rink, beautiful facility. Watched Canada versus the Czechs, the Czech-Germany game, which was great. Saw Austria-Finland. And the last game I get was Canada-Austria on that fateful Tuesday evening. And I had the wherewithal, I had the thought to say, well, I kind of want to get something from this tournament. You can't buy a drink, you can't buy, food, you can't buy food, can't bring anything in because of new rules. But I decided to get this hat that I'm wearing today, and I decided to wear it today just because I wanted to. It's a really comfortable hat, really nice looking Hockey Canada hat. But it. Wednesday when I woke up and it was about 9 o'clock Edmonton time, I saw that Bob McKenzie tweeted out that the Finland, who were they going to play that day? Finland, Czech Republic, Czechia, were supposed to play at noon Mountain Time. And that was being canceled. And I said, okay, this is not good. And then I see Russia, Slovakia, is being postponed that afternoon in Red Deer. And I'm like, oh no. And before Canada can drop the puck that night, they're supposed to play Germany, it's announced that the tournament is canceled. And I'm not going to lie, a few curse words in my hotel room. And it was tough because the hockey was so phenomenal and the tournament means a lot to me. I've talked about, March Madness being a tournament I love the World Juniors, and thankfully I was able to get on a bird the next morning, get home the next day, which, if you could have seen that Edmonton airport that morning, it was bumping. And this was at 4:00 in the morning. I got to see all of Team Canada put their bags on the gurney. It was so upsetting because you see the looks in their faces. But I did get to speak to Mason McTavish, one of the stars of Team Canada, for 10 minutes. He was on my flight. So I talked to him for a minute. He's a really nice young man, a great hockey player. And, what I hope from this is, I was talking to my dad about COVID today, and I'm a cynic. I take the negative argument 95% of the time because I don't know why, that's just my brain. That's my makeup. And he said, well, hopefully this is a quick wave. Everybody, for lack of a better term, gets it. And then nobody can get it again for a while until the next variant. Hopefully the next variant is something that we can all pronounce. Like maybe you can call it, I don't know, COVID-19 Paul or something. It's too close to Jake Paul because I think he's already got his own kind of virus. That Paul family, they definitely got something in the water there, and it's not exactly kosher. So maybe not Paul, but you get my drift. Maybe make it Noah because I'm negative all the time. Maybe that's exactly what needs to happen. The next variant's called Noah, and be the first time we hear something. Then that'll really get the Noah's Ark, the Bible people really fired up, which would be fun too. But let's save that for another day. But yeah, I feel terrible for the players, and I guess I saw a lot of them. I had a few Slovak players that play in the QMJHL on my flight to Montreal. So they were on the flight. I saw people all over the airports that were decked out in their country's gear. Obviously, I don't know if you've heard about the Russians. They're supposed to fly out Friday night. they were actually booted off their flight because of coaches smoking cigarettes, players not wearing their masks. So that doesn't surprise me coming from the Russians' point of view. But yeah, so I was supposed to be there 10 days. I was there 4. Which when you hear that, it's really like, wow, that was I was just getting acclimated to the time zone. First time being out west, and I'm back in New Brunswick. And not only that, but I get back, and then there's a COVID scare, and it's going everywhere. So then I have to isolate for 3 days, and I did not test positive, but I had to take a bunch of rapid tests and not see anybody, and be a good civilian, just protect everybody, right? So that was my week, and it sucked, quite frankly. But I got to see a few games. If I'm seeing the positive side here, I mean, Owen Power is better than I thought he was. Buffalo has got themselves a damn player. McTavish. I got to see Bedard have his 4-goal game. That was incredible. Matvei Michkov. It's unfortunate. I want to see him play in person. I did not get to do that. I want to see him play against Canada, against Bedard, and hopefully they can schedule a tournament in July. And hopefully Sawyer, my in for this tournament, gets his ticket that he had this time, and we get to go again, because that would be phenomenal. Because I don't care if it's 30 degrees here in July, I will go, because hockey sports means more to me than weather. I don't care the time of year. It was -40 in Edmonton. It was cold. Coming back here, it's like, it's like summer. Like now, I'm just like, okay, well, I can get through this for the rest of the winter. That's one blessing in disguise. But I mean, to be honest, guys, it's been hard to podcast because everything is just COVID. NHL can't play, COVID. Postpone games, COVID. Who tested positive? And it's just, there's one NHL game tonight. There's going to be no games in Canada for a while. And for people wondering, well, why did Toronto play a home game Saturday? Why did Toronto play a home game this coming Wednesday? I'll tell you why. Because it's a Sportsnet game. Because it's Wednesday night hockey. It's hockey night in Canada. They need those ratings. They need that TV money. That's why they're playing in front of no fans in Toronto. And for season ticket holders, I'm sure that's not a great thing to hear, but that's why. It's a business. And do I think that Barns in Canada should be 1,000 people or none? No. I was just in Edmonton. They said it was 50% full. It sure didn't feel 50% full to me. It felt like, and if people don't want to go because they're afraid, that's fine. You're entitled to that choice. But I do think people should be given the choice. I mean, we're 2 years into this, and it feels like we haven't moved forward at all. And the fact that we're not going to have people in Barnes, in New Brunswick, no youth hockey, and no youth sports, it's really defeating. And that's why I'm saying when it's podcasting about hockey, it's difficult, but I'm going to spruce up. We're into a new year. I'm going to try to punch out more content than I have ever. And I've been doing this for over a year now. This coming year is going to be the best year yet for To The Point. We're going to pump out a lot of content, great guests. I'm going to work for you guys. I want to work to improve the podcast, improve myself, talking to you guys. There's always room for growth. And, for frequent listeners, let me know what I can do to make your experience better. Maybe you want to see me wear this cool hat all the time. I'll wear it, whatever. You want to hear me talk to people. You want to hear me cover a sport that maybe I'm not right now, that you want to hear me break down. I totally open to that. And I know for some people here in Canada, football is not the be all end all. And maybe I talk too much football. Let me know. I love it. It's it's just the biggest point in my life when it comes to sports. There's nothing better than football to me. I mean, this past weekend, I watched a ton of college bowl games, the college semifinals. Then yesterday was a great NFL day, which we're going to talk about today in the podcast. I did watch the Winter Classic. Boy, did it ever look cold. St. Louis, a team that I really like to watch play, and Minnesota, for that matter. Didn't really watch a whole lot of Toronto, Ottawa, to be completely honest, because Toronto looked good, but it was really, did they look good, or did Ottawa just look like they came down from a bar and drank about 50 beer? I mean, they were fucking terrible. But we're going to pump out more content. Me and Seamus are going to keep doing our thing. We're going to finish Breaking Bad tomorrow. I'll see what he wants to do when it's another show, whether it's movies, and also let us know what you want covered. If you want something, if you want us to cover a certain film, a certain show, send it to IG, Facebook, DM us. You can send me a personal message, and we'll do it. It can be a comedy. There's no holds barred here. To the point, as you guys know, it's to the point. It's no holds barred. We'll talk. It can be Step Brothers to Saving Private Ryan. There's no range when it comes to what we'll do here. But yeah, a lot of good things coming in the new year. Hopefully, 2022. Fingers crossed that it's going to be a good year for everybody. And as we get into January, it is really this past weekend is normally the end of the NFL season. It's week 17. But last year in the offseason, the Players Association in the NFL, Roger Goodell, agreed to have a 17th game, a 18th week. So we get an extra week of football. And are there going to be games next week that are irrelevant? Yes. However, we are shaping up for a great last week. I like what ESPN has done with 2 games on this coming Saturday. I love that. With college football being done, and only 1 afternoon hockey game as I look ahead to the sports calendar. But yesterday was a chaotic day. It was a day that it laid the groundwork for the future going forward in the NFL when it comes to playoffs, when it comes to home locales. It showcased some really good teams, and it also showed us, well, is that team really that good? And you could say that on either side of the border, so to speak, the AFC, NFC divide. But I was going to start AFC because I think you had the game of the day between the Chiefs and Bengals. But there's a bigger story that I have to talk about. And I'm going to talk about games. I'll talk about trends, players I'm worried about. But then there's this guy that he's so hard to like. And if you liked him before and you still like him today, I don't think you're really a sports fan. And you'll probably root for the Jets because you probably don't like to win. But Antonio Brown is one of the most talented wide receivers in the history of the National Football League. There's no denying it. Top 10 in catches, top 10 in yards, top 10 in touchdowns. For a 6-year period, he averaged over 120 catches a season with 12 touchdowns. That's Jerry Rice-esque. However, throughout this man's incredible career statistically, he's been a nuisance. He was in Pittsburgh where him and Big Ben didn't get along. 2019 season, final week of the season, where they're still fighting. If they win the game and with the Ravens loss, they make the playoffs. He doesn't show up for the game. Just doesn't show up. Doesn't show up. Prior to this, they win a divisional game. He does a Facebook Live in the locker room of Coach Mike Tomlin's speech. And he was kind of lambasting the Patriots to get his Steelers in the right mindset to go kick some ass. which if that's not material to use for the Patriots, I don't know what is. I don't know what is. So then Pittsburgh lets him go. After he couldn't get along with Big Ben, didn't like people don't like Big Ben, so maybe they felt bad for him. They say, he's right. Big Ben, he had that lawsuit that he never was actually, was never a criminal lawsuit. But you know what? Big Ben's a pig. Okay. Even though Big Ben's won 2 Super Bowls and AB at that point had won none. But nevertheless, Big Ben sucks. We hate him. Let's move on. Okay. Fine. He goes to then the Oakland Raiders, where he is late to training camp. The NFL sets up a new helmet mandate where these old helmets are gone. But Tom Brady, who most people deem the GOAT, cannot wear his old helmet. Brady doesn't like the rule, but it's about concussions. It's about CTE. Deal with it. He doesn't. He starts to bitch and complain. Doesn't dress in preseason games. Then throughout this whole training camp, which they were on Hard Knocks, by the way, goes in the chamber. And you can't go in this hyperbaric chamber, this pad, with wet feet. He goes in with wet feet. He gets blisters. His feet turn all to hell and can't play. Then he asks for his release. Throughout this, he's also dealing with a domestic violence suit. And he's also dealing with not paying his trainer, not paying his personal chef. So it seems to be adding up on old AB. But throughout all of this, he's got all the talent in the world. He's ripped. He's got speed. He's Antonio Bleepin Brown. And he goes to New England, plays 1 game. Tom Brady really likes him because, he's uber talented. But what does he do after 1 game? He gets cut for domestic violence suit and also criticizing the owner, Robert Kraft. This guy. So then Tampa gives him a chance. Bruce Arians, so clearly the head coach, wants nothing to do with him. Had him in Pittsburgh when he was the QB coach for Big Ben. Doesn't like AB. But Tom Brady, the greatest leader in all professional football, and that's satirical, by the way, wants him. And to his credit, he kept him in line. He wins a Super Bowl, catches a touchdown pass in the Super Bowl. He gets redeemed. He is now a made man. He's a Super Bowl champion. Comes back this season, deals with injuries, but then in the middle of the season, we find out that he got someone to make him a fake vaccination card, which this is not necessary. It is not a requirement to be vaccinated in the NFL. It's not. But, so you could just say, you know what, I'm not getting vaccinated. That's my personal opinion. Kirk Cousins, Carson Wentz, lots of players. Darius Leonard with the Colts, an all-pro. They didn't want to get vaccinated. Okay, that's your personal decision. Did we hear Kirk Cousins get criticized this past weekend because he didn't want to get vaccinated? No. Did they get crushed last night at Lambeau? You bet. But we didn't hear people saying, well, Carson Wentz is selfish and Kirk Cousins. No. We hear people criticized for lying, like Aaron Rodgers. Did he get slammed? For good reason. Be honest. Be upfront. Face the music. And you got to think you're doing something wrong if you're not willing to admit what you did. So he does that. He should be cut because he's not worth the time of day anyway. But it all comes back to Tom Brady. Tom Brady wants him. Tom Brady says, no, Chris Godwin tore his ACL. I need him. I need him, coach. I need him. Okay. Plays against Carolina. Catches 10 balls for 100 yards and a touchdown. Things are going great till this past weekend. until yesterday. And I have never seen something like yesterday. Albert Breer and Ian Rappaport, both great sources, both work for the NFL Network, Monday Morning Quarterback, came out and basically said that AB said he was dealing with an injury. And would I believe AB? Hell no. Because if it looks like a rat, give it cheese. And he said he's banged up. He can't go back into the game. Well, okay. BA says, I need you. We're down receivers. Can you please go back in the game? AB, no. BA again. AB, I need you to go back in. Like, people are playing fucking hurt here. Tell me Gronk's hurt. He's had 9 back surgeries. Get in the fucking game. No. So then BA says, okay, then beat it. Get out of here. You're done. You're done for the day. But he doesn't act like a human being. Doesn't act classy. Takes off his helmet, takes off his shoulder pads, throws them on the bench, then rips off his shirt, throws it into the stands, throws his gloves, and basically gives the New York Jets crowd a wave goodbye, effectively signaling the end of his career. And there's a couple things here. You don't need to play professional sports to know that Antonio Brown's he's just not a good team. He's not a good person. I mean, you don't give up on your teammates. There are guys that have played 4 or 5 minutes a game that don't get opportunities, that get benched, that are in poor situations, but they handle it like a pro. They go in there, game in, game out, and play because that's the job. He says he's dealing with an injury. He says he's got all these problems. Well, you're lucky to be on a freaking roster. You don't have the right to say, okay, I'm dealing with an issue right now. You just don't. I'm sorry. Get your ass in the game. And just the way he left, he should never play in the NFL again because his actions are greater than his production. Before, his production was so elevated that you say, well, you know what? We'll keep him because, yeah, he's a pain in the ass, but he's catching close to 200 balls. He's getting close to 2,000 yards receiving. We need him. Okay? You could justify that. But now he's just a run-of-the-mill receiver. Mike Evans is better than him. Chris Godwin, when healthy, is better. Brady trusts Gronk a hell of a lot more. And I just look around the league. If you're a bad team, why do you want this cancer in your locker room? Why do you want to have a locker room that's already stinks, and then you carry in a skunk and you have it by the tail and just say, okay, go ahead. Fire away. That's not what you want. He shouldn't play in the NFL again. And yesterday should disqualify him from the Hall of Fame. Because as of right now, he has a Hall of Fame career. He has a Hall of Fame arc. But you don't get to the Hall of Fame of a pro sport by quitting on your team. And I heard some people in the media mention yesterday, oh, well, he's just pulling a Terrell Owens. Okay. Well, I'll start off. Terrell is one of my favorite players in NFL history. Terrell is, in my opinion, the second greatest receiver ever behind Jerry Rice. A lot of people might say Randy Moss. Okay, I'll take Terrell because I like Terrell more. Both of them never won a Super Bowl, even though Randy Moss was deemed a team player. Terrell, did he have problems with quarterbacks? Yes. Did he play for that many great quarterbacks? Not really. Jeff George, John Kitna, Tony Romo, no Hall of Famers there. Then he doesn't speak to Donovan McNabb to this day, but he was playing for the Eagles in 2007. In 2004, against the Eagles. 2007, Brady was losing to Michael Strahan and the Giants. But 2004, he has a broken leg and he plays in the Super Bowl. He is beyond hurt. A normal human being does not play in the Super Bowl with a broken leg. Doesn't play, period. Doesn't play hopscotch the next day. He plays an entire NFL game, has 8 catches, over 100 yards receiving, and Philly nearly beats the Patriots. There's no comparison. Terrell had a drive to win. He might not have loved every one of his teammates. He may not have loved every quarterback he played for. But he didn't say, I'm not going out there. I'm packing it in. Antonio Brown is a nuisance. Antonio Brown is a pain in the ass. And another person who should take blame for this, and a person I look at his media yesterday as a complete phony, as complete garbage, that's Tom Brady. Tom Brady wanted to keep Antonio Brown. He said, I need him, coach. I can keep him in line. I can contain him. Well, the greatest leader in sports couldn't contain Antonio Brown yesterday. He couldn't contain that ego. And now he's like, well, we should worry about AB's mental health. And maybe Antonio Brown's dealing with some mental health issues. And I really hope he gets those resolved, because mental health is real and everybody should get the help that they need. However, this guy has had multiple issues. And for Brady just to go up there and sing his praises while he quit on him. If this wasn't Antonio Brown, if this wasn't a guy Tom Brady basically put up on a pedestal and said, I love him, he'd be killing this player. Yesterday, Tom Brady resorted back into New England Brady, where he's just, we're on to Cincinnati. He's just a drone. He gave us nothing. And this is on Brady. I don't care what anybody says. You chose to keep him. He acted like a little child. You're supposed to be the parent. You couldn't keep him in line. You deserve blame. And also the narrative that, just for record, I picked Brady to win the MVP before the year. I predicted the Bucs will repeat as Super Bowl champions. This is not Brady hate. This is just facts. And also the fact, well, AB quit on the team and then Brady rallied for a big comeback victory. You beat the Jets. The Jets stink. Zach Wilson had a hell of a game yesterday. His best as a pro, no doubt about it. But Brady had a comeback goat drive against the New York Jets. Was Joe Namath quarterback? Like, what are we talking about here? The Jets Jets? I don't give a crap if every player quit on the team but you. You're playing the Jets. The pathetic Jets. Look at yesterday. If Robert Saleh, who goes for it on 4th down with about minute 58 left, if they convert, Jets win the game. If they kick a field goal, the game goes to overtime. Who knows how that goes? But you give Tom Brady 2 minutes. I don't care if there's no timeouts or not. He's going to score. That's just what he does. Yeah, he's a clutch player. No doubt about it. But just to sing his praise and just the gift of gab about coming back against the Jets. The fact that you're in a game in the last 2 minutes against New York Jets tells me more about you than anything else. It's not about the heroics. It's about the fact that you almost let the Jets beat you. And I still believe in the Bucs. I still like this team. Okay, Godwin being out really hurts it. AB as a skill player hurts it. But his presence out of that locker room, I think, can only help this team. Because he's a nuisance. He's a pain in the ass. He doesn't deserve to be on an NFL roster, point blank. But for him to walk out, for this Bucs roster, I look at it and say, their defense needs to improve quick. Shaq Barrett's been out. He should be back for the playoffs. But Vita Vea, get to the quarterback. To me, I really thought about this yesterday. And there's three keys, in my opinion, to win in the NFL and just win football games in general. These are my three keys to winning. And ultimately, I think the team that does these three things the best will win the Super Bowl. And I do think the Bucs have the capabilities to do these three things effectively. Number one, rush for 100 yards. Get 100 yards rushing per game. You should win most games that you play in. And if you can get a rusher that does a lot of it, you look at the Bucs, Rojo, Keyshawn Vaughn, you might have more than one guy, but get your rushing attack. We see teams lose all the time because they don't rush the ball enough. Rush for at least 100 yards. 2, don't turn the ball over. Why were the Jets kind of in that game yesterday? They didn't turn the ball over. They didn't turn the ball over. The Bucs did once. Brady threw an interception. But if you don't turn the ball over, you have a chance to win every game. There's a few outliers yesterday. The Raiders won a game where they turned the ball over twice. Colts didn't turn the ball over at all. But if you don't, Arizona Cardinals did not turn the ball over yesterday. They beat the Dallas Cowboys. Again, this is basic. It's basic football here. Don't win the turnover battle. You'll win the football game more often than not. Score points off those turnovers. That's number 2. Number 3, rush the passer. And have a pass rush that can win and get consistent pressure so that the quarterback is throwing off balance. He doesn't have time in the pocket. He's escaping. He's pressured. He makes decisions he wouldn't normally make. And can the Bucs do that? They did that. That's why they won last year. They didn't win because of Tom Brady. He won Super Bowl MVP. Okay. But do you really think he was the best player in that game? Well, he wasn't. But did Shaq Barrett, did they make Patrick Mahomes run for his life? You're damn right. And that was the biggest reason they won, because their defense came to play. Now, you need your quarterback to be really good. But can you consistently get pressure on the opposing quarterback? Can you make his day difficult? Can you tire him out, make him run all over the field? That can be the difference between you winning and losing a game. Now, I look at this list. Can the Bucs run the football? Yes, they're not great at it, though. Now, they could be the outlier where Tom Brady throws the ball 56 times a game. I don't love that, because there are some defenses that will give them trouble. There are some defenses that have some really good pass rushers. And if you throw that many times, they're going to get home eventually, because that's just how it works. But you need to find a balance. They don't turn the ball over that often. Tom Brady will throw interceptions, but especially in the playoffs, he's good at containing the ball, and hopefully the Bucs defense can force some turnovers. They can rush the passer. They can do that. When JPP, when Shaq Barrett, when Vita Vea, when Levante David's healthy and you want to have a blitz, they can get to the opposing quarterback. But to me, that's the key ingredient here. What team will do these three things the best is a team that will ultimately win the Super Bowl come the second week of February. Sticking with the NFC, coming to the day, Packers are the number 1 seed. You have a 3-way tie for the 2nd seed with the Dallas Cowboys, Los Angeles Rams, and the Tampa Bay Bucs. And just mention the Bucs. They get a win, but it wasn't an impressive win. You beat the terrible Jets, so way to go. Looking ahead, what did we learn yesterday? Well, the Green Bay Packers have locked up the number 1 seed in the NFC. For the 2nd straight season, the NFC playoffs will go through Green Bay, Wisconsin. They destroyed the Vikings last night at Lambeau in just freezing temperatures. And that's something last night, what we didn't see last year. In the NFC Championship game against the Bucs, they were playing in warm temperatures for Green Bay. It was warm. It wasn't very, very cold like it was last night. It wasn't miserable weather. And Green Bay's got a hope down the stretch of the playoffs that the cold weather is there. Aaron Rodgers used to playing it. All these backs, they're not going to fumble. They're used to. Can Rojo, can Keyshawn Vaughn, Fournette, they're not used to this type of weather, this cold weather. Can you force the ball? Can you get the turnovers that can ultimately lead to you winning? But, they beat Minnesota last night without Kirk Cousins, without Danielle Hunter, without Everson Griffin. It was a battered roster without Adam Thielen, who had season-ending ankle surgery. So I look at Green Bay. They're a good team. Aaron Rodgers, I believe, will, I said Brady before the year. I still think he's right in the mix. I think even though I don't believe that Jets drive meant anything, I think a lot of people in the media will hold on to that and they'll want to give it to the old guy. But Aaron Rodgers to me is the MVP again. But this MVP really is irrelevant to me because it'll be his fourth, which kudos to him. That's not easy to do. But this is all about the playoffs. John Elway went his whole career he lost 3 Super Bowls. But towards the end of his career, they got Terrell Davis in Denver. They got Shannon Sharp. They fired the late Dan Reeves, who passed away over the weekend, and they hired Mark Shanahan. And everything came together. And he won 2 Super Bowls on his last legs. And that's his legacy. He's got 2 rings, whether you say, well, he didn't earn them because he wasn't his peak. It doesn't matter. He goes out with 2 rings. Peyton Manning, 2 rings. Brett Favre only got 1. When we talk about Aaron Rodgers, maybe the best thrower of the football in NFL history. One of the most polarizing players because of his stances, because of how egotistical he is, about how everything has to be parsed. Everything has to be about him. Well, he won a Super Bowl over a decade ago. And to me, you've got home field advantage. You got Devontae Adams, the best receiver in the game. You got a 2-headed monster at running back in A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones. Allen Lazard's a great number 2 receiver. David Bakhtiari may be back on the playoffs. That extra week of rest can only help his chances of getting back. Your offensive line isn't what it was to begin the year, but it's still pretty solid. Your defense has played out of its world. Jair Alexander should be back. You got Eric Stokes playing at a high level, the rookie from Georgia. You signed Rasul Douglas. I mean, this lineup's good. They struggle with stopping the run. That's one thing. I don't know if they're physical enough. But again, if you match up against a team like the Bucs, who don't run the football a ton, maybe that bodes well for you. But this is all about Aaron Rodgers. Are you going to be that guy who's only won 1 Super Bowl? Drew Brees is looked at favorably. But you also got to remember, he's got a lot of passing yards. He's got a lot of great stats, touchdown passes, whatever, longevity awards. But Big Ben has more Super Bowls than Drew Brees. And I think 9 out of 10 people would say Drew Brees has been a better quarterback. But it's about the hardware at the end of the day. It's about winning the Super Bowls. And, Big Ben's career might be coming to an end. Aaron Rodgers is 38, still playing at an elite level, but who the hell knows what he's going to do with his career next? Does he leave Green Bay, a very good situation, to go to a Denver, to go elsewhere, to go to New York potentially? Where does he go? And I just look at this team and say, this is your chance. Matt LaFleur might win Coach of the Year, probably deserves it. Done a hell of a job this season. You got home field. You got the number 1 seed. This should be about locking it in. This should be about Green Bay finally doing. Aaron Rodgers said all he wanted last season was home field throughout the playoffs. He had it last year. He couldn't make it work. You have it again this year. What can you do with it? What can you do with it? Can you get back to a Super Bowl? You haven't been to one in a very long time. You're 1-4 in NFC Championship games. That's not a great legacy to continue, but you win that 2nd Super Bowl, people look at you different. You're in a different league. Yes, Dan Marino is looked at as one of the greatest throwers of the football ever. You can make an argument Dan Marino is more talented than Drew Brees, more talented than Ben Roethlisberger, more talented than even some greats, than Joe Montana in his era. But Joe Montana's got 4. Steve Young's got 2. Dan, for as good as he was, didn't win any. So having 2 Super Bowls opposed to 1, it sounds so minuscule, but it means so much in the grand scheme of things. Imagine what the career of Alex Ovechkin would look like if he found a way to win another cup. He's already the all-time leader in power play goals. He all-time leader in Rocket Richard trophies. I still believe he's the greatest goal scorer of all time. But imagine the Washington Capitals win another Stanley Cup, and he has 2. He would go from people label him the greatest player to never win a Stanley Cup. He'll never win. He's a selfish Russian. To winning 2 Stanley Cups in the same era as Sid the Kid Crosby. Even 1 validates him as a winner, validates him as a great player. But imagine what could happen. 2. When you say 2, it's different than 1. It was I'm reading Mark Messier's book right now. He said winning 2 to 3 in a row, it's just back in the 80s, it was just different. Those Montreal Canadiens teams, the Islanders under Al Arbor, they're looked at differently. The Oilers won 2 in a row, then they dropped a crazy series to the Flames, and Mark Messier said, we were better than Calgary. We should have won 3 in a row. They ended up winning that following year. It would have been 4 in a row, but they only won 2 in a row in that time frame. Imagine they don't fall to Calgary. They're still a great team. Mark Messier is still a great player, but he didn't win multiple cups in a row. The Blackhawks they're great. They won 3 cups in 5 years, but could you argue the Pittsburgh Penguins of 2015 to 2017 were better than the Blackhawks of the early 2010s? You could make that argument because the Blackhawks never won multiple cups in a row. It's just different. All these different sports have these little touch points. And I think for the game of football, 2 Super Bowls is just, it puts you in a different mindset, different sphere. Eli Manning is not a great quarterback. He led the NFL in interceptions 3 separate times. But why is he likely, I think for sure, going to get into the Hall of Fame? Because he has 2 Super Bowls. And was he the most important aspect of the team winning those 2 Super Bowls? No. But if Eli Manning, as of right now, will go down with more Super Bowl victories than Aaron Rodgers. It's just different. Aaron Rodgers will still get into the Hall of Fame. Aaron Rodgers will still be looked at as one of the most talented players to ever play the position. But getting that second title in the NFL is like winning 2 to 3 Stanley Cups in a row in hockey. It's like winning multiple scoring titles in the NBA. What do you hear about? Well, LeBron's only won 1 scoring title. MJ won 10. There's a big difference there. Scoring is more important than assists. And as a guy that had way more assists and goals, I hate that, but that's just how it's looked at. That, and it's artificial. I mean, it's people discussing it. It's past players. It's media people. It's me and you. But that is where we're at. And I look at Green Bay. You crush Minnesota. If I'm Green Bay, this is what's going to happen. They play this Sunday against Detroit. Then they'll be off a week. Then they'll play the following week in the divisional playoff game. I would play Aaron Rodgers for a quarter or a half this coming week because I don't want him sitting out an entire 2 weeks. But I'd play him for a quarter, see what he does against Detroit just to keep him fresh. Then you have your week off. Hopefully Bakhtiari can come back healthy. His toe can heal. You play Jordan Love the rest of the half. But I would play him a little bit this weekend because, yes, he's a veteran. Yes, he's been through this. But I want him ready. I want him focused on winning another Lombardi. And we'll see what Matt LaFleur decides to do. But I would play him a little bit this weekend. Have 3 quarterbacks dressed so that when you go to Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers could take off his gear. Maybe you sign Blake Bortles to a 1-week contract. We saw New Orleans do that a few weeks ago. Blake Bortles was at Green Bay to start the season when Aaron was late to show up to OTAs and minicamp. So Blake Bortles would know the system. So potentially that's a route they can take, sign Blake Bortles and move on from there. But Green Bay, this is your chance. This is your opportunity to really step on throats and Aaron Rodgers to win that second Super Bowl. Also, the NFC. Yesterday was a really impressive day for the Arizona Cardinals, and I really think the only outcome yesterday for the Dallas Cowboys was going to be failure. And it was going to be, well, you did what you're supposed to do, or you lost to a team you should have beat. And that's a tough position to be in going into a game, because I look at the game and say, well, the Cowboys were 6-point favorites at home, and Arizona had been playing some terrible football. Kyler Murray was turning the ball over. They were just finding ways to lose. They got blown out by Detroit. It was just an ugly scene in Arizona for a lengthy period of time. But what happens in the game? Kyler Murray plays his best game, in my opinion, since week 4 against the Rams, where he just came out, he controlled the offense, he made smart decisions on play action, on read plays, and he just looked like a general out there. And what did he do? He didn't turn the ball over. He had 2 touchdown passes, no turnovers. They ran the ball for over 100 yards. Check. And what did they do? They forced 1 turnover. Check. My 3 checklist, Arizona wins the game by 3 points. They also have a gutsy play where they go for it on a 4th down on a play where they have a fake punt. Chris Banjo, the safety, throws a pass to Jimmy Ward, the running back, a crazy catch, and it works out for them. But they did what they had to do. Kyler ran the ball 9 times for 44 yards. Chase Edmonds ran the ball. They threw Zach Ertz at 7 catches. He's been really important in the offense. D-Hop is not healthy, but they found a way to win. And I look at Dallas, and Dak Prescott is Jekyll and Hyde. That's how I look at him. He had 3 touchdown passes yesterday. And on paper, it looks like a great day. 1 to Cedric Wilson, 1 to Michael Gallup, who tore his ACL on the play, and 1 to Amari Cooper. But he was just average yesterday. He made some really poor decisions. He fumbled the ball on a hit, which really, really cost them. He missed open throws. You see him run. This is another problem for Dallas. They are undefeated when they run the ball more than they pass. And I'm not saying when it comes to yardage, but just when it comes to plays. When they run the ball more than they pass the ball, they are undefeated in the Dak Prescott era. Yesterday, Dak Prescott threw the ball 38 times, which is a lot. And I look at, they ran the ball 17. That's not good production. They only had 45 yards rushing yesterday. That's not enough. Ezekiel Elliott, you don't trust him. He's 9 for 16 yesterday. Tony Pollard has got to be hurt because he only had 3 carries for 9 yards. Well, you have Cedric Wilson, who's an electrifying guy. Use him out of the backfield. Use him in jet sweeps. I think he could be if you watch San Francisco with what they do with Deebo Samuel, I think Cedric Wilson could be that guy. CeeDee Lamb's electric with the ball in his hands. Use some screen action. Just run the foot, have some running tight plays where it's not always on Dak to throw the ball, to be the hero of the game. And too often that's what's happening. And it's a huge win for Arizona. But I look at Dallas. Okay, they didn't turn the ball over yesterday. That's something they've been doing a ton. They don't do it yesterday, but you expect Arizona only put up 25 points. If you're Dak Prescott, if you're Dallas, you need to win that game yesterday, and you don't. And that's so unfortunate for that team. That needs to be a game you win when you hold an opponent to 25 points. But kudos to Arizona. But we look at the NFC standings now. And they go as follows. Green Bay locked up the number 1 seed. The Los Angeles Rams are currently the number 2 seed, tied with Tampa Bay, both at 12-4. The Rams squeaked by with a victory over Baltimore yesterday on the road. Lamar Jackson didn't play again. I don't expect him to play the finale of the season. He's banged up. They're not going to make the playoffs this season. It's really been a downward spiral for them. But, Matthew Stafford, 5 picks in his last 2 games. He's really not playing great football. But LA picks it up for him. Cooper Kupp continues to be just the stud that he is. They find a way to win. So kudos to them. That's all you got to do in this league is just find a way. Can you overcome that? Can you find a way to win? They win 20-19, game-winning touchdown to OBJ with just 57 seconds left on the clock. So they win the game. But, Stafford looks a bit tentative. 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Baltimore only turned the ball over once, but if you're LA and I look at this team, they're really good. Jalen Ramsey, in my opinion, the best corner in football. Aaron Donald, the best defensive player in football. You got Stafford, who's a top 10 to 15 quarterback when he's at his best. Cooper Kupp is in the top 5 of receivers. OBJ is not what he used to be, but what he is great at is hauling in touchdowns. That's what he's been doing since he's came to LA. Sony Michel, not an elite back, doesn't jump off your page. But what he's been doing lately, they run the ball just enough. He had 74 yards rushing yesterday, but 19 carries. That's the important thing to the team. Continue to run the football. But they have everything you'd want. But again, it's a 2019. It shouldn't be that close against a Baltimore team that's beat to hell. But can Stafford be better than Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs? Can Stafford be better than Tom Brady in the playoffs? Because otherwise, I look and say at the playoff structure, can he be better than Kyler Murray? Yes, I believe he can. Kyler Murray beat him one time head-to-head this season. But if LA is at home, I like LA to win that game just because there's going to be no DeAndre Hopkins. J.J. Watt's out for the season for Arizona. They're a little bit more beaten and battered. And Kyler Murray does not have a receiver that he can trust, 10 out of 10 times to go up there and make a catch. It's not AJ Green. AJ Green's not what he used to be. It's not Christian Kirk. He's more of a gadget guy. Again, it's almost Zach Ertz they acquired at the trade deadline. But again, he's a tight end that is not going to break away. But I think they're just missing something. Their defense is really good. Buddha and Chandler Jones and Byron Murphy Jr. They got some ballers in that defense. But I think LA's got a better team. Dallas. Well, for Dallas, if Dak Prescott played like he did this year against Atlanta, or if he played the way he did this year, like he did last week against the Washington football team, I believe Dallas is a bigger threat to Tampa than Green Bay, because I still have Tampa higher on my list. But he's so Jekyll and Hyde. I love their defense. Randy Gregory, Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, Trayvon Diggs in the secondary. This team is loaded on Doris Armstrong, who got a sack yesterday. This team can flat out rush the passer. They always win the turnover battle. And unfortunately, they don't run for anything. And they don't run the ball enough. So that's the one flaw in my 3-tier metric here. But they have a really, really good team. But if Dak Prescott can find it, I think they can compete with LA. I think they're right there with them. San Francisco, interesting. San Francisco finishes the season against the Los Angeles Rams. And they need to win that game because New Orleans is at 8-8. They win yesterday. They get a big win. And against, who did they play? Some junk team yesterday. Carolina. And if New Orleans beats Atlanta and then San Francisco loses, New Orleans will make the playoffs. San Francisco won't. So San Francisco is still a lot of pressure, but whether it's Jimmy Garoppolo who's dealing with a thumb injury or Trey Lance, who had a terrible first half yesterday, but rebounded in a big way, looked like the guy that you'd want to draft third overall. Because in that second half, he lit it up. Number one, he didn't turn the ball over in the second half, but he had 2 touchdown passes. They ran the ball effectively. He had a touchdown pass to Deebo Samuel, another one to Eli Mitchell. But that was the game, really. I was impressed by Trey Lance. So whether either quarterback, we'll wait and see. If New Orleans was to make the playoffs, that's Taysom Hill. I'm not afraid of Taysom Hill at all. So I think looking at it, I think LA is right there with the best of the teams. But LA and Dallas are similar because I love their defense way more than I love their offenses. And for Green Bay and for Tampa, I like their offense more than I like their defense. So we'll see what wins out in the end. But it should be fascinating because there's still matchups to decide things. Philadelphia clinched a playoff spot yesterday. They're 9-7. They're going to the playoffs. they play the Cowboys this week. And this week is different because there's 2 games on Saturday. Saturday, 5:30, we got Chiefs at Broncos to wrap up the season, followed by Cowboys, Eagles. Cowboys are still playing, hopefully to get the hoping to still get into one of those top 3 seeds if Tampa loses to Carolina, which is doubtful, or if Los Angeles gets a good test from San Francisco, which is potentially more likely. They could get into one of those 3 seeds, get a better matchup in the playoffs. So both teams will be playing for something, because Philly could potentially vault up to that 6th spot. So they would play, as of right now, Tampa in the playoffs. If I'm Philly, I'd rather get that 6th spot. And I'd rather stay at 7 as of right now and play LA myself than play Tampa. But nevertheless, Jalen Hurts, Philly gets back. Nick Sirianni, rookie coach, gets back to the playoffs. So kudos to him. But those matchups should be fun next week on the NFC side. Also, just looking at the matchups next week, we got Packers games meaningless. Bears, Vikings meaningless. Washington Giants meaningless. Saints, they win, get some help, they're in. Bucks, hoping to keep that number, hoping to potentially get the 2 seed. Seahawks, Cardinals, just playing. They could still get the 1st spot. If the Rams lose, Cardinals win next week, they would vault and win the division. So there's still a lot to be decided in the NFC when it comes to what's happening and how it all shakes out. Now we go to the AFC, and this was some interesting things happened yesterday in the AFC. Some things you didn't expect to see. Well, start today at the Kansas City Chiefs, are the number 1 seed, winners of 7 in a row. Patrick Mahomes playing phenomenal, but they go into Cincinnati to play the Bengals, and the Bengals have an opportunity to win the AFC North, which, if you know the Bengals history, they would lose this game because it's Cincinnati. They just don't win the big game. They're allergic to prosperity. But to their credit, Cincinnati comes out, and Joe Burrow has proved over the last number of weeks, and I don't even think it's disputable anymore, that he is a top 5 quarterback, that he's right there with the best of the best. When he came out of LSU, he had 1 season in college, but he has such an arrogance to him, but it's a likable arrogance because he just balls out on the field. I mean, in his last 2 starts, Joe Burrow has 971 yards passing and 5 touchdowns. Sorry, 8 touchdowns. That is phenomenal. The guy is just lighting up teams. And over the weekend in college football, we saw Jackson Smith and Jave for Ohio State catch over 300 yards receiving in their bowl game win over Utah. Well, a rookie receiver who used to play with Joe Burrow in LSU showed why he went as high as he did yesterday, why Cincinnati took a receiver and decided to pass on Penei Sewell, which I doubted at the time, and I have to eat crow today. Jamar Chase, as a rookie, has the most receiving yards by a rookie in the history of the NFL, passing Justin Jefferson, who set the record last year. But not only that, he has 1,429 receiving yards. That's good for 4th in the NFL, behind only Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson, and Davante Adams. Justin Jefferson's in his 2nd season. He's also 2nd in receiving touchdowns with 13, only behind Cooper Kupp, ahead of Mike Evans, ahead of DK Metcalf, Davante Adams, Adam Thielen. I won't name the rest, trailing behind him. And yesterday, in their biggest game in years, Cincinnati has been waiting for a game that meant something to clinch a division title. It wouldn't matter what happens next week against a team like the Cleveland Browns in their finale. It doesn't matter what happens on Monday Night Football tonight between Cleveland and Pittsburgh. Jamar Chase catches 11 balls yesterday, for 266 yards and 3 touchdowns. Not only that, he has a 72 plus 76-yard reception. This guy can make the quick slants and break it out and go for long chunks of yardage. And you could say both teams' defense didn't show up yesterday because Mahomes didn't have a bad day either. He went for 259 and 2 touchdowns, but it was just a shootout. And down the stretch, I hated the way they officiated the game in the last 3 minutes. I think they almost tried to ruin the game with how many penalties they called. But what a thriller this was. This was the thriller in Manila. This was Tyson Holyfield, 2 great quarterbacks that we can only hope can stay healthy, that we can only hope stay at these destinations and battle for many years to come, because it was Joe Burrow, it was Patrick Mahomes, and it was who can make the last play, and it was Joe Burrow yesterday. 34-31 victory on a walk-off field goal by a rookie, Evan McPherson. And the thing about the Chiefs, they had a crazy day. They ran the ball for over 140 yards, which is so rare for them. Darrell Williams, 14 for 88, 2 tubs. Derek Gore, Mahomes ran. And you look, well, Mecole Hardman had the most receiving yards on this team. He had a 53-yard catch. Demarcus Robinson, Blake Bell, Pringle, Kelsey, they spread the ball around. Joe Burrow threw for 446 and 4 touchdowns, but he had 266 to Jamar Chase. He had T. Higgins had 62, had 39 on 1 catch. But I said this before the tailspin, and I gave up on them because they were playing terrible. I said the Bengals can beat anybody, and I truly believe that. And the reason I say that is because they have a great quarterback. They have an elite weapon. Their running game is very solid. You look at their weapons. T. Higgins is a stud. Uzuma, the tight end, is great. They have everything you'd want in a team. But I said their defense was Swiss cheese. But when Sam Hubbard, when Trey Hendrickson, when that front is playing ball the way they want to, they can beat anybody. And I believe they sent a message because they're 10-6 now. They clinched the division title. They finish next week with Cleveland. Cleveland could have something to play for. If they win tonight, they'd be 8-8. Then they'd hope for Indy to lose next week. Yeah, they need Indianapolis to lose, which is a long shot because they play the Houston Texans, but they wouldn't be dead to rights yet. So they'd still play Cleveland with something to play for. But at this point, Cincinnati still has a chance to be the number 1 seed. Tennessee plays Houston next week. Indy plays Jacksonville, which is even more likely to get a win. But you look at the landscape here. Cincinnati's really, really good, as is Kansas City. And Kansas City's defense has been playing well. They had a rough game where they played a really good team. But Joe Burrow, you get him into the playoffs, he can ride that wave of momentum because he's got that flair. He's got that arrogance. I think Patrick Mahomes has that same, and I'd love to see these 2 teams meet again in the playoffs. That would be a lot of fun. But the AFC is stacking up to be really interesting because Tennessee, crushes Miami yesterday at home, 34-3. And I don't think anybody thinks that Tennessee's a great team. I don't think anybody thinks that Tennessee is, unbeatable by any means. But they're going to play Houston next week. They should get that win. They'd be the number 1 seed. So the intrigue is, well, can they get Derrick Henry back for the playoffs? If Derrick Henry can come back, they're in good shape. You got Tannehill, AJ Brown is going to be back healthy. You get a week of rest, and you got to go through Tennessee. They're a team that's been in the playoffs the last 3 to 4 years. They've gone through these wars. They got to an AFC Championship game against Kansas City. Could they find the secret sauce? Potentially. Then you got Buffalo. Buffalo wins yesterday against Atlanta, but it was by no means impressive. I mean, I leave that game and I go, Josh Allen had 3 interceptions. He played terrible yesterday, but he runs the ball 15 times for 81 yards, 2 touchdowns. And they run the ball effectively, but it's against Atlanta. Like, you shouldn't be in a dogfight against, it's like beating the Jets. You shouldn't be in a dogfight against Atlanta. You should crush Atlanta. New England destroys Jacksonville. That's what you should do. That's what you should do. What is New England? When New England wins, what do? They run the ball. Case in point. They turn the ball over and they get to the passer. What happened? Trevor Lawrence threw 3 interceptions yesterday, all led to touchdowns, 21 points off turnovers. And what they do? They sacked him 3 times yesterday. Oh, and what did they do when it comes to running the football? Oh yeah, they ran for over 160 yards. Rodgers Stevenson had 100. Damian Harris only had 35, but he had 2 touchdowns on the ground. And they didn't have to do much the rest of the day. They took it easy with, because Jacksonville was out of this game by halftime. So to me, I look at the AFC. The team I trust the most is still Kansas City, because Kansas City's done it in the playoffs years and years. Cincinnati is green when it comes to playoffs. They don't have that experience. Tennessee has more of that failure, has some experience. Buffalo got to the AFC Championship game last year, but I don't love their roster. I don't trust their roster. I don't like their defense as much as I do Cincinnati, Tennessee for that matter, who have a great defense, or Kansas City. New England I like more than Buffalo, but you finish the season, New England goes to Miami. They should win that game. They've already clinched a playoff spot. Buffalo will play the Jets. Again, that should be a win. They will lock up the division. New England will play in a playoff game. Likely, if it ended today, New England and Buffalo would play each other for a 3rd time this year. Obviously, they split those meetings. That'd be a lot of fun, too, to see these 2 teams match up again back in Buffalo, where, oddly enough, New England won that matchup with the crazy wins. Then you look at it. Indy yesterday loses to the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders, who are dead to rights, who were just sputtering, they've won 2 in a row all of a sudden. They're 9-7. Derek Carr, who I like, didn't have a great game yesterday, but he did enough. Josh Jacobs, a few special plays with Marcus Mariota. Zay Jones had 100 yards. Hunter Renfrow makes big catches. They beat the Colts because Carson Wentz didn't show up until the second half. It was the first game this season that the Colts lose where Jonathan Taylor rushed for over 100 yards. So now, because the Chargers crushed the Broncos yesterday with Drew Lock at quarterback, who will be gone sooner rather than later because no SEC quarterbacks seem to win in the NFL anymore. He'll be gone. But Justin Herbert had a good day. They ran the ball effectively, again, over 100, forced a couple turnovers. But now, next Sunday Night Football, and the Sunday Night Football finale, the Las Vegas Raiders will play the Los Angeles Chargers. And in Vegas, the winner of this game will make the playoffs. The winner of this team will be one of the wildcard teams, likely the final wildcard spot. They'll play, if it finished today, Kansas City, which would be a divisional game. Chargers beating Kansas City already once this season. The other game going to overtime. The Raiders blown out both times, but who knows? It's the playoffs. But it's winning, you're in. You gotta love having that the last week of the season. Put that on Sunday Night Football. This is a huge moment for Justin Herbert, who's in his 2nd season. He's been touted. He's been talked about. Joe Burrow's in his 2nd season. He's going to make the playoffs. Mac Jones is a rookie. He's going to make the playoffs. Can you do the same thing? For Derek Carr, you're a veteran. Yes, you've made the playoffs, but John Gruden's fired. Rick Bisaccia is an interim head coach. If you get to the playoffs, could this team go on a run? Can you get Darren Waller back? What happens to this team if you make the playoffs? Who the hell knows? But I love this game. It's a divisional game the last week of the year. It's win and you're in. It doesn't get better than that in the NFL. And I like the Chargers more, but the Chargers are a team that play great one week, stink it up the next. So if we follow their trends all season, the Raiders will find a way to win this game. But it's just great theater. And, Browns Steelers tonight, it could be Big Ben's final game at Heinz Field. I think it will be. The guy he just can't do it anymore. He can't throw the ball down the field. And I'm a Big Ben fan, but, it's time for him to move on. It's just this isn't the Big Ben that we know. And, it's too bad for him that he's not going to go out being a great player, but he's a two-time Super Bowl champion. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame. Both these teams with a win still have a chance to make the playoffs, believe it or not. They would need a lot of help from the Jacksonville Jaguars, who yesterday with a loss clinched that they will pick first in the draft for the second consecutive season. After drafting Trevor Lawrence, they're still picking first again. So it's ugly scene in Jacksonville, to say the least. But what will they do? Do they go with a left tackle, an Evan Neal from Alabama? Do they go with a pass rusher like Aiden Hutchinson or Kayvon Thibodeau from Oregon? We'll wait and see. But, we'll talk about the game tonight, tomorrow. I'm going to talk about some NHL stuff when it comes to COVID. We'll break down the Oilers-Rangers game this evening. Talk some NBA, Kyrie Irving returning. Some interesting things about the Lakers, DeMar DeRozan making an MVP run. I'm also going to talk tomorrow about college football and less about the bowl games, which I've thoroughly enjoyed. Well, Matt Wright's going to join me on the podcast later in the week. We're going to talk about preview the national championship game, which will be a week tonight. But not only that, we're going to talk about Kirk Herbstreit and what he said about players not loving the game as much as they used to. Basically, in my day, and players skipping bowl games. They're going to the NFL, skipping the bowl game to prepare for the NFL and getting criticized for it. I have a big issue with Kirk, with the way he handled that on College Game Day this past week. So we'll get into that tomorrow. Lots to get into. Again, Monday Night Football recap. We'll talk hockey. Some breaking news for you Leaf fans. I guess Austin Matthews tested positive on his rapid test, as well as assistant coach. So they're waiting for the PCR results, but Austin Matthews could be on the shelf for a little bit of time here, as the Leafs are basically getting all their players back. Marner's back healthy, Bill Nylander, Muzzin, Tavares. All their key ingredients minus 34 were out with COVID recently. So we'll see what plays out there. We'll talk about that tomorrow. But everybody that supported me over the last year and through 2021, I appreciate it. We're here. It's 2022. We're bringing fire. Tomorrow, another podcast. Then me and Seamus are going to finish talking Breaking Bad. But throughout the week, we're bringing the heat here. We're talk all year. It's going to be great sports talk. I want you guys to be part of the conversation. Join us on socials. Leave us your thoughts. In the comments, YouTube, Facebook, however you get your material. Subscribe, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. So it's a new year. It's going to be great. We're going to have a lot of fun. I hope you guys are enjoying the content. Football playoffs right around the corner. Lots happening. Olympics. Is it going to happen? What's happening? Hopefully my hair is better the next time we do this, because I took my toque off. But Happy New Year, everybody. It's 2022. It sucks so far, but we're going to make it good here on the podcast. Have a great night. Enjoy the football games this evening, and we'll talk tomorrow.